Look, I've got my Hanukkah mug. The joys of living in a little small town in the South is that Hanukkah is kind of a non-existent thing around here. And so when a bunch of stuff is overstock in the thrift store for super duper cheap, it's usually Hanukkah stuff. So I find some of the cutest little things in there. And I think I paid like 50 cents or something for it. I was like, okay, I'll get one. I'll get me a mug.
I think it's really funny. We both chose.
Like, see how big it is? See, you got a big one too. Yours is pretty. Yeah.
Mine's just a ceramic mug.
Oh, very cute.
Yeah. And my husband has a green one, and when he makes coffee for us, his says "Morning Handsome."
Yeah.
On it, and it's dark green, and so we have his and hers mugs, and so he knows how to measure into these cups, so he just always makes it in these cups. It's fantastic. So
very cute. Fun mugs. Yeah, not little dainty cute ones today. We got some big old, it's cold. I got a big old mug of tea.
Right.
All right. So I know we have a world of questions, and this one is going to be a special edition kind of holiday palooza answering y'all's questions. And I know you said we've got like 20 questions to go through, and my track record of answering quickly is usually not too good. So we are going to purposefully try to move through this. We can get them answered, and I'm sure Sabrina will end up adding chapters and stuff down there. So if you're looking for a specific answer to a specific question, you can look down in the description box. But otherwise, I'll let you kind of get into this, as I know we've got a lot to tackle today, but I'm glad to get to do it. You guys have asked questions. You deserve to get your answers, right? Like,
so instead of reading exact quotes from people, what happened was a lot of people asked the exact same questions, but they worded things differently. So I kind of picked and chose and summarized, and here's the summary.
You're right, because yes, there's far more questions that were left than 20, but a lot of them are pretty similar, kind of in the same nutshell. Perfect.
Yes.
Because that would have been a really long video.
Really
5-hour Q&A.
So the first question is, haven't you done several videos on this subject already? You talked about it. You've had your kids talk about it. You've discussed it in some of your comments that you've received regarding your personal views and how difficult they were to read. In one video, you even said that you had considered getting off of YouTube and scrubbing the videos from the internet. What is your goal in discussing this again? Now, this is exact wordage because this one is so unique. Why are we doing this again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, I understand I understand everybody. When you say you're doing something different than when everybody else does, right? Like you're going against like the traditional grain, like that makes people go, wait, what? What are you doing? Right? Like that's, and there's a lot of assumptions. Somebody today called me a Zionist and let me know that they were unsubscribing. And I was like, Zionist, what? I think it's interesting to see, that quite often I think in Christianity, we forget that Jesus was a Jew. He came for the Jews. Like I'm not saying that we are and we need to subscribe to everything, but I think it's interesting the divide between some of these things. But the point here is we said from the beginning that I would answer your questions. And I think that's really important, that if somebody is going to offer to do something for you and then just be like, oh, I'm over it, done. That's not right. Like, I feel like it's my job here to be real with you and to stand by my word. So if I say, hey, if you have questions and you're curious, like I'll be happy to answer them. I don't think that would be right of me to then be like, I'm really sick of talking about this. Never mind. I'm not answering your questions and move on. Like, I think that sounds like a horrible thing to do. Have I had some moments in the past week or 2 weeks, however long it's been, that I'm like, I cannot wait to get through this? Yes, I have, because some people are, I've messaged you. We've had to hide users from the channel because people have gotten so nasty and so mean, but that doesn't mean that there aren't so many just beautiful friends on here that are so kind and so genuine and have real questions and real things. Like, if we're friends, shouldn't we show up for one another? So I think it's important, important to do. If you say you're going to do something, you need to do it.
So left to your own devices, you would never talk about the subject this vulnerably again. However, if somebody were in your home, you'd chat about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think answering some of these questions might help give some clarification as well to some of the assumptions that people have gathered, from watching the videos. But I think when you go on and you do a video and you say something so like out of the norm, because oftentimes some of the comments I've gotten that are really upset, I'm like, but I addressed that. But I think when you just heard it the first time and it was so different than what you've always felt or thought or whatever, that when you heard it and we're like, whoa, 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 right? And immediately, and I'm like, no, but that's what I said. So I think having some time here too to answer questions and clarify and share might be hopefully really helpful as well.
I think so. I found a comment that I chopped it up, but I found a comment that, in my opinion, summarizes the purpose of why you make yourself uncomfortable and talk about this and put yourself out there and talk about it, because it's different living it and doing it, because we all do that. But then when you like expose yourself to the internet, it's like a whole different level.
Yeah.
So I found something that summarizes, in my opinion, why you are that way.
Okay.
While I will celebrate Christmas and rejoice over the birth of our Lord, your videos also make me want to take a pause, dig into scripture, and find a balance where I feel I am honoring Jesus above all. Thank you for your videos.
Oh, yes. That's beautiful. I couldn't agree more.
So to me, the reason that you do this is not to convert anybody. It's not to like demand that it's all your way or to show that your way is the only way, but it's to make sure that everybody knows that there's a choice. And
I'm not even saying my way's the best way. Like that is not, I'm just saying what our way is.
But you're exposing people to the fact that there is a choice. And in society, we're told to go with the flow of things, and traditions are traditions. And why should you not celebrate them? And you're not telling people don't celebrate. You're just saying, why do we celebrate? And the digging in is the part that you are really focusing on. Less of what you do, more of why you do.
Mm-hmm. I think we all should ask these questions all the time about everything. Like, have you ever thought to ask that before? I know I hadn't. It's an interesting question.
I wholeheartedly agree. Okay. Is Christmas a tier 1 issue? Like, is it a salvation issue?
Oh, absolutely not. Not even close. No way.
Really? Okay.
No.
Just checking.
Yep. Not, yeah. And I think that whole, am I holier because I don't celebrate it? Are you holier because you do celebrate it? I've had a lot of comments along those lines.
You mean the next question? Do you think your family is holier because you don't celebrate anything?
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Because I do think that is one of the really, I think there's a few issues with the Torah observance movement in large, but I think there's a lot of beauty in Torah pursuance, where I think the church for so long has tried to remove all things Jew out of this. And we act like Jesus came to create a new religion, but that's not at all what happened. He came as a fulfillment to the Jews, and we are grafted in. So I think there's a lot to be learned in that. But am I saying that, because I think some people do, they kind of idolize, well, I celebrate the biblical holy days, so I'm clearly much closer to the Lord than you are because you're celebrating Easter. Now, I have major issues with Easter. I would ask the same questions just like I do with this here. But again, the point is, let's ask these questions and let's look at these things, and let's both walk forth. Like there's no tier. I mean, there's rewards for works that we do and things like that, and the life we lived and what we served and investing in eternity. Like we know there's rewards like in heaven. But God doesn't have this like tier list of who's his shining star and who's only getting bronze and who, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, that's not what I'm implying.
There's not a video game scoreboard.
Right. Like who's ranking where? Like, don't unplug the machine. I don't want to lose my high score. Like
That's exactly what I pictured in my head.
Yeah.
No? None of that? Okay.
No.
Is Christmas pagan?
I love this question. And here's my thoughts on this. Because you're right. We can pull up 50 resources of people pulling the pagan roots of common Christmas traditions. On the other side of that coin, I can pull up 50 resources of, again, solid people pulling up 50 reasons for how Christmas is not pagan. And so I feel like if you are just getting looped into it, it's pagan, it's not pagan, it's pagan, it's not pagan, you can go round and round in circles. I mean, and honestly, who knows? Because there's a lot of these things that you see and you're like, wow, like that's really convincing evidence. But then you can flip the site over and go, there's a lot of compelling evidence there as well. I know for me, I found it rather interesting that if these things aren't pagan, some of these things, right? I think some things clearly have ties to one thing where something else might be a little more like, might be stretching it a little bit. I think a couple things are interesting. I think it's interesting that there's a lot of people, even within Christianity, stepping out and going, hey, let's look at the roots. I mean, Puritans that banned Christmas. I mean, there's many periods of time that Christmas was not celebrated by Christians because of its ties to other things, including, the Catholic Church, different pagan festivals, things like that. I feel like for a while that started gaining some momentum of people going, hey, maybe we should check this out. I think this is pagan, whatever. And then it was like, the next year, there was a wave of all these teachings coming out showing how, no, it's not pagan. Here's the defense for Christmas. But again, if we're just going to chase, like if our sole purpose for not celebrating is because it's pagan, I feel like we're totally missing the mark. What I said is when I started digging in and seeing where certain things came from, and then what I found really interesting is if you just like Pinterest search certain things, right? The Yule log, different things like that. You just Pinterest search them. You can see very clearly that many people involved in witchcraft today still utilize these elements in their celebrations and processes today. That gave me the EBGBs. And I was like, not that I do Yule log, that, it was just part of it. And I was like, oh, it just made it feel yucky. Like, no thanks, I'm good. I think that there is a huge movement today that is trying to connect everything to being something pagan. And that is a dangerous road to go down. And if we are trying to remove ourselves from anything pagan, then we're going to have to remove ourselves from living in this world. Why are you on the internet? Why are you using this? Why do you have that? I mean, we could do this all day long. I wear a wedding ring, right? Are wedding rings pagan? My daughters have necklaces. They can have pagan roots. I have nail polish on and some, right? Like we could literally go round and round forever. Everything has some sort of root to something that's been used in a pagan way. So if we're just going to say pagan, not pagan, I think number one, we're going to have a hard time tracing back, the past few 6,000 years of history to get for sure details on every little thing. I think some things stand out as, I'm far more willing to compromise and say, okay, my daughter can wear the shirt she likes because it has a sparkly Christmas tree on it. Well, but what about all the shirts that have like sparkly pentagrams, right? She just wants it because it's sparkly and cute. Right? Can she wear a pentagram one and not a Christmas tree one? Because if our rule is just pagan, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we could chase that circle around a lot. I think there's a lot of compelling evidence for things being pagan. And I think there's just as much compelling evidence for a lot of things not necessarily being pagan as well. And so if that's your hill you're trying to die on one way to the other, I don't know. I think that that's kind of a hard one, because again, there's so many great, compelling things on both sides. But I feel like for me, pagan or not pagan is not one of my like top tier reasons of why our family made the decisions we made. There were things that the more I read about them and different things that I was like, I always thought it was kind of weird. Like, why do we do that? Because that was my question. My question was why? Why do we do this? And then I looked at some things historically and was like, well, that's kind of weird. Like, how did we get to that? Right? It just seems strange. Like, how at Easter do we have chocolate eggs and bunny rabbits? Like, how did we get to that? Right? Like, that seems like kind of a weird thing. But I think if that's going to be our spot to die on, that's a hard one, because I think we can all have our thoughts and our 2 cents and what we think makes the most sense. But for either side to try to claim like with 1000% certainty that this is what it is when we're talking the history of, thousands of years, we're probably, none of us are probably completely in the right. It's probably a little mixture of both.
So when I was thinking about this, I would summarize how you feel about it like, is Christmas pagan? Sure. Everything in the world right now could and most likely does have some kind of pagan ties.
Yep.
How much do you want to play with pagan ties is completely up to you.
Yep.
As everything in our world probably is connected to something naughty. It just is. That's how networking works in our society now.
Yeah.
So it's probably got some kind of pagan ties to it, but that's not your criteria, your check boxes as to why your family stopped celebrating it.
Right.
Okay. That goes into the next question.
Okay.
Is it because of the consumerism that you don't celebrate Christmas then? If it's not because it's not pagan, is it because of this consumerism that maybe you don't celebrate it?
I think that's a large key piece into it. I think for me, what made us, consumerism was probably like the starting point of it, where I was like, wait a second, why are we so focused on all the stuff? I mean, everywhere you go, we just came from the store before we started this, and my kids were asked at least 15 times, what are you asking Santa for? Did you make your wish list? They're passing them out the little, at the store, they have the little like kids booklets with all the toys and stuff. It's like a little cat. It's like, remember when we were kids, we had the JCPenney's catalog and it was so exciting. You've got older kids now, so maybe you don't but when you go in, they have these little, and Amazon sends them out like earlier in the year anyways, but it's like a little mini catalog of gifts. And so everyone's like, oh, here, did you make your wish list? And our kids are like, I'm not making a wish list of toys. What? My kids are confused. They're like, what? That's not what I'm doing. But I would say that the consumerism was maybe the first part that had me really rethinking why is this the norm? Why, like, even if it's not what your family does, like, why is that the norm? And then the thing for me that just really got me is, as a Christian, if I'm going to celebrate this as Jesus's birth, why am I doing it now? Why am I doing it on this date? Why would I not do that at Sukkot when the whole point of that, that celebration is God tabernacling with us? When, if we looked at gestation periods and things like that, like it would make more sense that that's where his birth was. And so I would say the consumerism is definitely a part of it, and probably the first part that got me to kind of thinking, how does this celebrate Jesus's birth, right? Like, how exactly is me filling a tree with presents and stuff like that? Like, how does that glorify God?
Do you feel like Christmas is idolatry because you elevated it above God?
Yeah, and I actually think that that's really what it is in the majority of the cases. Am I saying that everybody makes an idol out of Christmas? No, not everybody. But I will say that when I've stood up and said, stand up in a room full of a bunch of people and say, hey, I quit Christmas. Oh, I could never quit Christmas. I have to have my lights. I look forward to my tree. I have to do all the things. And it's like, you wouldn't even consider it. You wouldn't even think about it. Like, why do we care so much? And then that's where I think it really is, to use a Christmas movie here, it's the Grinch, right? So at the end of all of it, if the Grinch came in and stripped everything, you didn't even have a crumb for a mouse, would your family still gather and be that joyful and sing songs of praise? Not that that's what the Who's were doing, you know what I mean? But would you still feel the same way and still do that? If you're like, oh, absolutely, yes, then fantastic. Your heart is in the exact right spot. And if you still want to celebrate on December 25th because that matters to you, then go for it. That's fantastic. But I think that if we're being honest, the mass majority of us would not be happy little Cindy Lou Who, swinging on the thing, singing our songs of praise with everything completely stripped away. And I think that that's a worthwhile topic to go, hey guys, should we think about this? Like, should we question it? Should we talk about this? I think that's interesting.
So there was one thing that you said that really sparked something in me, and it wasn't even what you just said, but it's all connected, right?
Yeah.
So if Christmas is what people describe it as, please do not hear this as I am bashing everybody who celebrates Christmas, because that's not what I'm saying, even a tiny bit. Not at all. However,
because it's the internet and everything you say can and will be used against you.
And I'm like, oh man.
Just say it. We'll pretend like it's nice people today that can hear what we're trying to say.
You said, well, why do we celebrate on December 25th? And I don't think we do. I don't actually think that the picture that most people tell us in the comment section, the nuh-uh, I do blah, blah, blah. I think their natural blah, blah, blah that they're giving us is the part that's connected to church or the gathering of the church that doesn't happen on December 25th. Mm-hmm. That usually happens on December 24th.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that Christmas is Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to some people.
Yep.
However, why are we celebrating by church on the 24th and celebrating with another type on the 25th? But then when you ask somebody about Christmas, they give you what they do on the 24th for the 25th. And you are like, wait, but actually, why? Why is this connected to this date? Or how is this connected to any of it? So I thought that was always very interesting. And then you brought up 24, 25, you brought up 25, the date. And I think about the Grinch and how he did that. And it wouldn't matter if it were Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. If somebody came in and took all of your goods, because I understand that they were Christmas goods in that moment, but if somebody came in and took all of your goods, could you still rejoice? Is that still a thing that you can do? And I know we're using the Grinch as a very strange analogy for things, but could you still rejoice? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can do that any day. It doesn't matter if it's 24, 25, 23, 28. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 2. And I went, oh, okay. I see your point with all of this. I understand.
And I think what adds to that is what makes me so sad is every year that Christmas falls on Sunday, what do churches do? 9 times out of 10, they cancel and there's no service on Sunday. Or if there is service, there are very few people there. We have a church that hosts everything online. And we have oftentimes changed or done something different because so many people won't show up. And I'm talking like wherever you are, you have a cell phone and you can sit there and do church. Like we make it literally as easy as possible. And even then we were like, guys, if none of y'all are going to show up, like we're going to be here ready to teach, ready to serve, ready to fellowship. And so I think you're onto it. I mean, that is something I think a lot of us have the best of intentions, but when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, so on the 25th, you're going to gather with your church. You're going to be sitting around a Christmas tree opening presents first thing in the morning.
So I think that it's just that we're using, when you say Christmas, you're referring to one thing. And when they say Christmas, they might be referring to something else. And I think that that's an interesting what is Christmas actually defined as to you or in your...
Because I'm not saying that gathering around a Christmas tree opening gifts with your family is sinful and wrong. Like, don't hear that into that either. I'm just saying, again, when we ask those questions, like you just did, right? Like, I'm sorry, but like when you ask that, it's what are we actually doing and what's the actual focus? Like, have we thought about that? Because if we're still like, maybe we read the story before we open gifts or do something, and that's beautiful. That's wonderful. That's fantastic. But that was my question of how is us sitting around a tree and opening a bunch of gifts celebrating Messiah coming down to our how does that actually do that? There's nothing wrong with giving gifts. I will tell you, my family, we are the most gift-giving fools you've ever met. We do gifts all the time for everything and for nothing. Like, our family just loves making gifts, giving gifts. How many stacks of pictures have my kids sent you in the mail? Because they're like, I just want to give you all. I mean, we're gifty people. And it's not extravagant. I mean, it's my birthday tomorrow once you guys see this. And so my kids were I was late doing this because my kids had to go to Dollar Tree with their dad and pick out gifts, right? So like, we're dollar menuers over here, but like, we're just gifty people. There's nothing wrong with giving gifts. There's nothing wrong with enjoying gifts. There's nothing wrong with, doing something like that. But again, it's just that point of like, to me, when I asked that why, I went, that's kind of weird. So this isn't when he was actually born. I don't know how this actually celebrates him. If you want to celebrate, that's fine. I just personally can't reconcile how the celebration is glorifying the birth of Christ at this time with these items. Now, we see it very much in our celebration of Sukkot, and we thank the Lord for coming, and we look forward to the return and for eternity never having to leave him. So we have our own, we kind of take a different approach to it. But does that answer that? Okay.
Well, it answers lots of questions.
Oh, okay.
But we'll come back to other things. But yeah, it totally does. So do you think that Christmas is idolatry to everybody, or was it just idolatry to you?
I definitely don't think it's idolatry to everybody. I think it's probably a little bit more idolatrous to more than we're willing to seek and look at. Because if Christmas was truly what we say Christmas was about, we would see that difference. If there were truly that many people coming to a true saving knowledge of the Lord in Christmas services, that church parking lot wouldn't be empty next week. We live on a road with 3 churches, and we just live in a little road in a little town, like we're nothing. And the parking lot is overflowing for these, for whenever their Christmas services are. They stagger them, right, to make everybody fit. And then guess what? We're back to bare bones the next week. So if it really was about what we say it was, I feel like the proof is in the pudding, right? Like we'd see that. And so I think that as a whole in our modern age, we don't really talk about idolatry enough. I don't think we really understand it. And I don't think we address it as we should. So I could see where most people don't think that they have any kind of, issue in their relation to it. But I also don't think we really know how to address it, right? And that was kind of always that point of like, we should be willing to cut it out. So cut it out and see how you feel. So if you cut it out and you're like going with withdrawals and you're like, I miss this so much, I have to have this, I can't stop thinking about it, then maybe there's an issue there, because the only thing we should feel that way with, of course, is the Lord, right? So like, if we're feeling that way about something else, that might be an area of concern that we want to look at.
Growing up, I went to a church that we used the largest auditorium that our town has, and there were 3 services. So there were at least 6,000 people who went through a Christmas Eve service. Not a Christmas service, a Christmas Eve service, and I think that this is a big point, is that it is the Christmas Eve service, not a Christmas service. Eve. But on Christmas Day, everybody was asked to stay home with their families and partake and do the family thing. And I totally agree. Everybody should do the family thing. But I just think it's interesting that we still call it a Christmas service, even though it's a Christmas Eve service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, do you observe any part of the Christmas season?
I mean, I guess that depends on what you would consider that to be. Do we have twinkly lights in our house? Yes, every winter. Even when we didn't celebrate, like we put them up every winter, regardless of what we celebrate. And I usually leave them up into the spring because it gets dark early and we don't really use overhead lights in our house. We just use lamps because we don't like harsh lighting. And so having twinkly lights up, we do that. We watch cozy movies and sip cocoa and sit in jammies. We give gifts, but like I said, we're kind of a gifty family. We do gifts all the time, of many different things. I mean, nothing crazy, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know what exactly we gather for meals all the time as a family. So I guess it depends on what your definition of Christmassy things would be. But as far as anything specific that would directly relate to a Christmas something, no.
So don't worry. I have a whole list of things.
Okay.
So before we get into the list exactly, do you think, I know you said it earlier, but to summarize it again, do you think that the Christmas tree in general is wrong or idolatrous?
I think to try to connect the Christmas tree to the Jeremiah 10 thing, I think you're stretching quite a bit. I see the interesting imagery, right? Like funny, you go and you kneel down, everybody's sitting at the, is that what I think Jeremiah 10 is talking about? No, I don't. I don't see that. I saw this like ex-Satanist talk about how Christmas is satanic because every satanic ritual needs a sacrifice. And so when you've cut the tree, you've killed the tree. So therefore that's I've seen some crazy stuff with stuff like that. Right. And you're like, oh, okay, well, get an artificial tree. Right. Like, so is the tree in and of itself idolatrous? Well, no, not necessarily. Can you make it that way? Yeah. How many memes are going around right now that we're like, yep, it's all fun and games. We got the cute, kids coming out until everybody walked away and mom rearranges all the ornaments to make them how they're supposed to be. And nobody's allowed to touch the tree after that. Right. Like, I had multiple trees all the time with multiple themes and multiple, I did all the stuff too. And for me, it was just kind of asking that question of like, number one, how is me decorating this tree celebrating Christ's birth? Oops, that's not what I meant to do. How is it doing that? And then number two is like, why does this matter? Like, why am I putting my effort and priority and like, are trees pretty when you walk around, right? Somebody was like, I'm denying poor Virginia because she would love to have a Christmas tree, but she can't have one because she doesn't want to let me down. And I'm like, this kid loves anything with sparkles on it. She is my girliest girl of all the girly girls, which is funny because she was like the tomboy girl when she was little. Like, so it's kind of funny to see her switch. But I'm like, is it pretty to walk into like a mall or a hotel? Hotels are always the best. They've got like the sparkliest of everything. Of course, it's pretty. Like, who doesn't walk by? Come on, who doesn't walk by and go, oh, that's cute. Look at all the sparkles. Look at all the pretty, right?
So I think that Virginia wanting a Christmas tree is a very interesting subject because I know you don't even know this about me, but we had a farm and in where we lived in California, it has manzanita trees / bushes everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so we had cows and they would go and strip the manzanita bushes. Oh. And so we would be left with these beautiful manzanita.
I wish I would have known you back then. You have no idea how much money I've spent ordering those for weddings. Like, I wish
I had a whole farm of them, big old farm. Well, I asked my husband if he could please cut one down, well, more like gather one up and arrange it so that it would stick out of my wall. And then like it hung from our ceiling, but stuck out of our wall. So it looked like a tree was sticking out of our wall, right?
Yeah.
And then we had, every time we went on a vacation, he would buy me like a keychain or a little dingle dangle crystal thing or whatever. And I would string them up and we would hang them as like a memory. We called it our memory tree, and we just would hang our little memories on our little memory tree, and it would just sit in our house all year round. It was not a Christmas tree. It was our memory tree. But as you described, Virginia, I'm like, oh my goodness, she needs a memory tree. That little dingle dangle crystals and the sparkles everywhere. She would love this. Oh,
yes, she would. Our kids actually laughed hysterically when I read that comment to them, and my son, he like started pointing, as I see behind you too, but he starts pointing to all the plants in our house because it's cold now. So all of my outdoor plants have had to move inside, and we realized just what a plant hoarder I am. And he was like, here, Virginia, put lights on the plants. He was like, do not bring another plant into this house. Just put lights on the one you got. How about we do that then?
So, do you go to friends or family's celebrations of Christmas?
So I will say that we don't have anybody that we could really go to. My husband's associate pastor and his wife, they do celebrate Christmas, and they go and do something with her mom, but they don't get, like, they themselves do not get super crazy about. They've come up and celebrated Hanukkah with us before, but they don't like host a big Christmas something or rather or anything like that. My mom has come and celebrated Hanukkah with us. She doesn't really do anything. For Christmas, it's kind of just a cozy day home from them. Her husband's usually off work, so they kind of enjoy the day together. I will say that, if my husband's family or something actually wanted to get together and come together, we would be more than happy to host everybody if that's what they wanted, but none of them ever do. I will say that, like, my dad, I actually just had a conversation with him last night, and he wants to send me some money, and he wants the kids to all get a little something as a gift from him. And so absolutely, I'm going to honor my dad and go pick out, he wants to give his grandkids a little something. So sure, you can give the kids something, Is that one of the questions?
It's totally one of our questions. So, you don't necessarily have people who do Christmas around you. So you don't have an opportunity to do Christmas with anybody. Yeah. But another question was, well, what if you were invited? Would you deny your family from going to somebody's house?
Absolutely.
And then another one is, do you allow your family to buy your children presents? Because that's like a whole thing. So what if you're invited to Christmas somewhere? What if somebody hands your kid a present? Do you snatch it out of their hand and you say, no Christmas present for you?
No.
Is that what you do?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like?
If somebody invited us to something, I mean, we're always happy to gather with someone. Now, I'm not going to go to something that's like, just like I know is just going to end up in like excessive drinking and party, but I wouldn't go to that regardless of what it was. So if we're talking Christmas party like that way, like Christmas parties we used to go to and host and things like that. Remember, I used to get paid to put these together and host them for people. We wouldn't go to something like that, but we wouldn't go to something like that regardless of it being tied to Christmas or not to Christmas. If, and our kids, I mean, we go out and about throughout Christmas time, and Santa Claus walks through the store and comes up to the kids and says things, and my kids just respectfully decline. They go, no, thank you, and that's fine. I've never told them to decline. They just do it themselves and say, no, thank you. We're good. Sometimes, whatever. And that's fine. That's, totally okay. We have had family send gifts before, and, our grandparents still buy stuff and whatever. For us, it's usually just we open stuff usually around Hanukkah instead of over Christmas, just because we're gathering and doing fun stuff then. Like I said, we usually every month have some sort of gathering something that our family is doing. I really can't think of a single month that we go through that we don't have some special like family gathering, something or other going on. And so December usually ends up being Hanukkah themed. And so do the kids, if a family member is going to send them something, they usually just open it then. But I wouldn't be like, no person, you can't send something to. I've got a sister-in-law who every time she sends him something, it's completely covered in Santa Claus wrapping paper. Even though we've all had these discussions, it's like she knows she loves Santa Claus. She does like Overboard, all of the things. And our kids just go, it's okay. Like, it is what it is. I'm not going to lose my mind.
Okay. Do you overdo birthdays to make up for not celebrating Christmas?
Oh, that was a great one. And I actually told Travis about it because he was the one who brought up how we do birthdays. And I said how we were getting so many comments going, oh, well, then you must overdo birthdays. That's you're compensating or like making it up.
We actually have a video on how you celebrate birthdays. And I'm going to mark down the time and put it in the timestamp.
Okay, cool.
Also, like, I know that how we celebrate and how you celebrate different things will be in future things as well. Yep. So, but go ahead.
Travis was totally kicking himself because he was like, I should have clarified that, right? That should have been, you do videos for too long and you, as you talk, you hear the comments you're going to get. So it's like constantly battling yourself to answer it. When we say that we look forward to birthdays, and birthdays are a really big deal for our family, and people go, okay, well, you must overcompensate and have really big birthdays. And that's like why it's a big deal. Our birthdays literally consist of, I make what that person's favorite breakfast. Keep me stop doing this. I make what that person's favorite breakfast is for everybody's birthday. We all gather and have some sort of meal in the afternoon. And we always go and pick that person out. Each one of us picks out like one or two things from Dollar Tree. And it's usually either something they need or it's really, really fun. And it's something silly. Like to us, that is our birthday celebration. Like that's what our family does for birthdays. It's always whatever is special for that person for breakfast, right? Which is usually French toast. So in our house, if it's a birthday, you're getting French toast. We all gather for a meal. You were here with our son's birthday. My mom comes in, like we just all gather and have a meal and they get Dollar Tree gifts every time. That's our birthday.
It was totally laid back. Like it really was just a big old gather. Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said, like, I think pretty much every month we have a gathering at some point, be it kind of works out because we have a birthday in, like, our family has August, September, October, November, December, January, March. So like one person has a birthday each time. And then in between there's usually something with Purim, with Passover, with Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, like there's always something. So usually at least once a month, my mom comes down, like we all just get together and enjoy one another's company to some, I don't know, whatever the purpose may be. But yeah, that's what our birthdays look like. I used to go all out. Our kids used to have theme parties. We used to do all the things. Like I went into debt for our son's first couple birthdays to make sure that they were over the top because like I was going to be the mom who did all the things and da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, we don't do any of that. I put up a couple decorations just because I think it's fun to put up decorations for any occasion just to make something feel fun. But like we get a couple banners from Dollar Tree or Walmart, throw them up and it's exciting, right?
I was there. It totally is. It's just, it's like the most chill home party there is. Mm-hmm. Okay. The next ones I'm going to combine and then you can answer them all together because they're all a thought and yet they're all individually their own question. Okay.
Okay.
Do you fellowship with church family or actual family who continues to celebrate Christmas? Does your church acknowledge Christmas at all? And if so, how does that work? What are your thoughts about churches who choose to celebrate? Do you use this as a time to evangelize?
So I absolutely would fellowship with any other believer, regardless of what they're celebrating. Yes, 1,000%. We have church family in our church that celebrate. Yes. We have family that doesn't, church family that doesn't. You guys don't really celebrate Christmas, but you guys don't also celebrate Hanukkah. Like, I mean, you guys are kind of like, you guys don't really do any of it. We ain't got no qualms. Like, I sent you a gift yesterday and said, Happy Hanukkah, like I just, whatever. Our church does recognize the only thing that our church, my husband's a pastor, him and his associate pastor, the only thing that we specifically do a special teaching or gathering or something on would be for the 7 biblical holy days. We have shared resources and different things. And we have people in the church, like last night, we posted and said, hey, Happy Hanukkah for whoever's celebrating. We love you all here. We're doing, we've got some study packets we've done and things like that. So like we offer stuff and we say things. My husband has preached on Sundays of Christmas and said, for those who are celebrating, Merry Christmas and enjoy your time together, as a family, because if this is what we're choosing to divide over, I think we're really, really missing the boat. And do we use this as a time to evangelize? I would hope that we are all using every opportunity the Lord puts before us to evangelize. Oh, sorry. Do you need me to talk?
Sorry.
That's okay. Puppy barking.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Did I answer all of those questions? I think I got them all right. Okay. Oh, and what do I think about churches that do it? I think that, are there some churches who are going way off the rockers on it? Yes. You can YouTube watch some of these Christmas Eve performances and different things and see stuff. And you're like, what on earth does that have to do with glorifying God and truly serving him? Some of the thing, do some go completely that direction in it? Yes, they do. Let's be honest. I think that was one question I saw somebody, I don't remember where it was, but they've stopped celebrating Christmas, but their church still has a Christmas tree up and still does Christmas stuff. Should they leave that church? No. If you are in a solid, like doctrinally sound church, but they do Christmas, that would not be something that I would ever break communion off with someone or leave a church or anything like that just because of that. Now, if they're not doctrinally sound, you've got some other issues and things going on and they're not, okay, that could be something we can stop and have a conversation about. But simply because they're celebrating Christmas and they're doing that, if it's something simple and tasteful and truly Christ-centered, do not leave your church because of that. Do not, break away from the body of Christ over something like that. Like, to me, I'm like, we can have differences here and say, I don't want to do that, and not like peace out on one another.
I think a doctrinally sound church is not going to necessarily naturally go overboard with a celebration in and of itself. I think that they would keep it low key and focused because that's what doctrinally sound people do. And again, it's not a tier 1 issue. So you should not break off with your body because of it's not salvation. It's not sin. It's not, as long as it's doctrinally sound and you're not like got Santa Claus on the stage, because I can't actually promote going to a church that's got Santa Claus on the stage.
Now, we podcasted on this a few years ago, a church that was hosting a breakfast with Santa. I'd be having a meeting with my pastor. Like, if that's what we were doing, I might be having a meeting and going, what on earth is happening here? But that's a little different.
So actually, I'm going to skip 2 questions and then we're going to cover that one right now. So is there any advice for someone who has strong convictions against aspects like Santa Claus or Elf on a Shelf? They're not specifically asking about them in service.
Okay.
But if it's in service, you would recommend going and talking to your pastoral staff privately and being like, so what's up, y'all? What's happening? Is this like what's going on? Give me some knowledge because I need some data. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be emotional, but I feel emotional, so I need some backup data, please. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think
if it's just a conviction that you have and it's not going on within the service, is it something that you like try to convert everybody about?
Yeah, I'm personally not trying to convert anybody about anything. The only thing that I try to do is to say, maybe we should think of questioning things. Like, I think that's an interesting thing. Have any of us thought to question it? If you've thought to question it, and then you go, yeah, okay. The only point I think I'm trying to make when I share is maybe we don't have to just go with the flow because it's the flow. Doesn't mean the flow's bad, but have we ever thought about it? Like, we just, okay.
Your agenda is not to say, hey, go against the flow. Your agenda is to say, hey, do we know that we're in a flow? Oh, wow, look at this flow we're all in. Fascinating, right? That's what you're saying. Hey, we're in a flow.
Do I think that there are fun things? Our family has little traditional things that we do that are fun and silly and cute, right? And little cutesy things and whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with playing into imagination and the joy of childhood and all of those wonderful, beautiful things, like especially those of us who have younger kids, right? Super fun. Nothing wrong. There's nothing evil about that. Am I going to be promoting Santa Claus? And my husband always hated, we lived with friends for a few years, and she was all about Elf on the Shelf and Santa Claus and all the things, which our kids are like, Santa's not real. And it was a whole thing. Anyways, so she would do Elf on the Shelf, and my husband hated it. He was like, this is the creepiest thing in the whole wide world. Like, what? Like, how? What? This is awful. And so my friend used to, every evening after, like, we'd all put our kids to bed, and us adults would usually come sit down, hang out for a little bit before, the night was over. And she would hide herself like we do Elf on the Shelf, right? And she would do it somewhere that she knew my husband would be coming by. And she would stay like perfectly still until he noticed it, because he hated the Elf on the Shelf every night. So then she was like the human Elf on the Shelf. It was hysterical. So I can't, I'm like, that creepy stinking elf. Like, that thing is so weird. But then she just, we had to kick it up a notch, of course. And so she was dedicated to it too. Sometimes she would be stuck sitting somewhere for forever before, like, he would like walk through the room or something. And like, she'd be like, gotcha. But I'm not going to go around like knocking them out of the shelf and like beating people over the head in the store, like, don't get it. If that's your thing, that's what you want to do, go ahead. I don't really see whatever, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with just, having fun things that you do together as a family. So I don't think we need to necessarily go around and like yell at people for doing things. But again, I thought it was interesting too, seeing in the comments how many people had commented how hard it was for them as adults, finding out they had been lied to for so long about Santa and the problem, and I'm like, I think it's something worth thinking about, parents.
Again, you're not saying not to do it, because that's everybody's own choice. You get to have choices, but you have the choice. So you have to know that that's what you're doing, is that you are making a choice. And it's not a problem that you've made a choice. Like, everybody has the right to make their own choices. But if you don't even know you're making a choice because you're just going along with what everybody else chooses, you don't know you've made that choice, or that there is something different that could be happening. So,
yeah.
Okay. I am going to read this question how I was asked it, because somebody asked me this question to pass it along to you, and I thought it was so perfectly worded. Okay. Also, it wraps up other people's questions in a tidy little bow. So, in Heidi's video about regrets, she mentioned wishing that she had a better answer for the cashier at the grocery store without sounding like a crazy person. Me too. So My question is, what's your answer to those people now that you've had some time to mature on this?
I actually found myself in the opposite end of that. I was in the store, I was in Dollar Tree earlier this week, picking up a couple little goodies for the kids with our things that we do. And I could hear the cashier. He had been talking for a while quite loudly. And, you know, when somebody's just a not happy person and you hear it. Like there's no offering anything to this person. Like they're just a not happy person. And so he's checking, you know, it's my turn. Everybody's been hearing him this whole time talking, and he just is, again, small town, but he is loud, and you can tell this person is not happy with his life. And he's checking on my stuff. Oh, stocking stuffers. I'm like, no, actually, Hanukkah starts this week. And he goes, oh yeah, I know. And he goes, well, you must be the only other Jew in this town besides me, because we have like no Jewish population where I live. And I went, oh, well, Gentile, but, you know, celebrating Jesus. And it was just a really interesting exchange we had, because he was so angry. And, you know, it was a big opportunity. You know, there was not much I saw in the moment, right? Sometimes there's people, there's no point in saying anything. I'm not going to win you. I'm not going to do anything. You know, there's nothing here that's going to come of this. But I thought it was an interesting exchange, because it gave us an opportunity to talk a little bit. And he's been on my mind ever since. I've just been praying for him and praying for him and praying for him, that the Lord will work and move in whatever way in this guy's life, because he's not a happy guy. And you know, so I think that's interesting. But I have found so many more times than not now, when people ask and they say something, my kids will do this too, and they go, oh no, we celebrate Hanukkah. And I don't know, we make friends with everybody where we go. We actually were just hanging out with our buddy Walmart earlier today, and he was asking us how Hanukkah is going and showing us pictures of his grandkids and like his whole thing. I don't know. And you've watched us do it though. I kind of just do. And so, you know, I think it's a neat opportunity, because I've actually seen more times than not, I'm like, oh, we celebrate Hanukkah, you know, so happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, or, you know, whatever it is. And they go, oh, that's interesting. And, you know, it's neat to see, not that it's like a single reply that pops up, but like the conversations that pop up. Oh, so are you Jewish? No, I'm a Christian, follow Jesus. Oh, right. Like you see, like there's just so many different things. Oh, I've had people ask, well, isn't there like a lot of nights? And I go, yeah, there's 8 nights. Oh, is that stressful? No, we just enjoy and gather together. Oh, how nice that sounds, man, to not have to have this like one stressful thing you have to do. Like I've seen, in fact, so many more little conversations open up that we're able then to have. I mean, some people don't care, but then some people I've noticed, they ask a question, and it might be about how long it is, how busy it is it stressful? You know, you know what I mean? Like there might be different little conversations that pop up in it. But I have found to just be open to be content if no conversation is had, or to be open to share where a little blip of a conversation can open up, I think is what's, you know, what I've kind of learned in that. Because some people don't want to have a conversation about it. Some people don't, you know, okay, I want to hear, oh, okay, that's weird, whatever. And they just want to move on. But more often than not, I see conversations open up, and, you know, to get to share and answer and respond in that, I think has been a really neat experience.
Are you saying that you matured out of wanting a quip for people?
I think so. Yeah.
And that,
because I don't need to feel validated by you, right? Yeah. So I don't need to have the right answer or the right thing.
But instead of having that quip that made you feel right, not necessarily that made them feel wrong, but it reassured you, it validated you, it made you feel right. Instead of that, now you're more open to having a conversation with that person to then accomplish the same thing that you thought the quip would have done then. But now you're like, oh, actually, I want to talk to this person's heart, and I'm not sure a quip is the best way to do that. I kind of think that maybe having a heartfelt conversation with this person in this moment would be the best course of action instead of a quip.
Yeah. And I think, and just as equally, sometimes seeing that there's no conversation to be had and being okay with that. We don't need it.
I just heard something that said that even Jesus discerned when to give an answer and when an answer was never going to be heard.
Yep.
He had that and we should all try to have discernment like him. And we all understand perfectly well that we will never accomplish it, ever. However, we should try to have a better discernment style.
Mm-hmm.
And even he was like, oh, actually,
We're not getting anywhere.
This is not going to get anywhere. And I'm going to probably walk away with more negatives than positives. And like, your heart isn't ready in this moment, in this conversation. And by pressing, no, this is not Jesus talking. Yo, not Jesus. Maybe by pressing you in this moment when you are a grouchy grouch ball, that everything that I say is going to harden your heart more because you're a grouchy grouch ball. And it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with what I believe or my situation. It has to do with you and what is happening right now. And I don't want to add to that. And that's probably the kindest thing I can do is walk away from you and continually pray that your heart is softened to the realness.
Yeah.
But that like you personally are continuing to pray for that gentleman who was so hardened.
Yep.
And over again through the week, you're like, God, just soften him, work on him and soften him and help him feel you and be content. And so you are pouring into him more over the week privately than you were in the moment publicly. And I think that's worth something. And I don't think we talk about that.
Yeah, I think coming to the realization and the contentment and the maturity that I don't need to explain or have that right answer. You know what I mean? Like to be content with that silence was a big key part of that. And if somebody wishes me a Merry Christmas, I say in the same to you. You know, absolutely. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and enjoy whatever it is you're celebrating.
Wait a second. The whole, since you brought it up, I'm going to ask you. So at the cash register, when they say, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you, you don't say, I don't celebrate Christmas. Don't wish me a Merry Christmas. How dare. You're not like that?
No. I usually say and to you, same to you, you know, whatever it is. If it's during Hanukkah, I might go Happy Hanukkah, or, you know, whatever. But yeah, no.
I remember that debate, and when that really started, the verbiage started changing from Merry Christmas to Happy Holidays, and people had a meltdown.
Yeah.
And so
I actually think saying Happy Holidays is more important, because that's actually one of those things of looking at what a witness we are to, say, like unbelieving Israel, when we come at things the way we do with, you know, how we as Christians kind of Merry Christmas, you know, kind of, yeah. I think there's actually some interesting not that we have to get into that all right now, but I think that is kind of interesting. And I think to be loving and to, you know, respect that not everybody is doing everything just like you are, and maybe they have good reasons about it too, is an okay thing, right? To think about.
That was the last question, but
was that it? Did we actually answer all of the questions?
We totally did. Yeah.
High five. I am like so proud of us.
Like there were so many more questions, but this is how it kind of like diced out summary style.
Oh, you know what? I remember one that I saw somewhere, and I don't know where, that said, I know we've had questions left kind of all over the place, so I genuinely don't know where I saw this. Somebody asked, what if my kids want to celebrate Christmas when they get older? I don't remember where I saw it, but I did see that question somewhere. I
saw that somewhere. And I remember. So this is just because I've always been your stalker and I just know everything about you. I know that you said in one of your other videos, you answered this and you were like they're choices. Again, yeah. I think we could summarize all kinds of these talks and conversations into like nutshell comments. Heidi doesn't like one and done. That's not salvation. Heidi
really
thinks that choices and being aware of the choices that you're making and that you have a choice is incredibly important. The sentence I use with my children all the time is, I don't care the choice you make. Actually, I do care the choice you make, but in this moment, in the way that you think I care, I don't care the choice you make, but I want you to be aware of all of the choices that you could make. So I'd like to present you with all of your options so that you feel better about the choice you've made. And I'm going to tell you all of them. So hold on. And they're like, oh, because then they have to hear my points, but I summarize their points too. And I tell them the choices they would have made. And like, it's a choice. It's an option. Mm-hmm. You can choose to celebrate Christmas. You cannot choose to celebrate Christmas. You can choose this. You can choose that. I don't care the choice you make, but be aware there are other options. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not stuck. If you think you're stuck, you're not stuck. You can make the choice to not do it. You can make the choice to do it. But are you gonna hate Lily if she doesn't celebrate? What if Lily has a Christmas tree in her home when she grows up? Are you gonna not talk to her?
Now, if my child is exhibiting signs of a massive heart issue, obviously I'm going to be concerned and want to address a heart issue if we're seeing something. If they want to celebrate Christmas and they choose to honor the Lord by celebrating his birth on that day, they can absolutely do that. If they want to get together and just have a cozy day because Christmas is fun and sparkly, okay, do all to the glory of God, if that's what you want to do. Somebody said something about, how I've messed our kids up and they're not going to be able to find a spouse because where else are they going to find some weirdo who believes this way about Christmas, right? And so now I'm automatically creating marriage problems for them that they're going to have, throughout their entire marriages because they'll be anti-Christmas. And of course, every other normal, sane person in the world is pro-Christmas. And so my son's point was, well, why necessarily would we be marrying someone who doesn't share our same beliefs, right? Like, obviously we're going to talk about that's very important to be equally yoked. And two, if they are true, if they're a true believer, but they still want to do that, like, why would I not show that love to my spouse? Like, why would this be an area that would tear us apart? Like, I would never just willingly be like, well, our marriage has to be torn apart and we're going to struggle for forever now because this is the hill I'm dying on. No, we're not going to do that.
In the relationship where it was like those breaking points where you're like, I don't know if I can deal with that. Christmas isn't one of those.
No.
Okay.
I mean, my husband and I went through this the other day because he literally just said something to me the other day, and he something, I don't remember how exactly he worded it, but I think he texted to me, and he said something about he just wanted to spend some time on the beach. Was kind of like what he was getting at, but I thought he meant like we gave up everything before and moved and went and lived on the beach. So I thought that's what he was saying. Like, I want to go move to the beach is what I thought. And the way, like I said, I can't remember how he worded it, but I did that face because I was like, but my response to him was, all right, I'm always down for anything, but I refuse to give up my sheep. So if this is our breaking point, I will not be giving up my sheep. And I don't think I can find a house to live in on the beach that's okay with my sheep. To which he responded, he was like, no, I'm not saying we move to the beach. I'm saying it would be nice if we could go to the beach one day. Like, that's what he was saying. And I was like, oh, okay. I just thought I was going to have to lay out that this is my breaking point, buddy. I'm not giving up my sheep. That this is a no-go. And yeah, he just was saying it would be fun to get to go visit the beach one day. So it was all cool. We're good here. But
I thought he was asking you to move to Ireland where you could have sheep and have a beach.
Okay, so I didn't
maybe secretly that's what he was actually asking, and you were just so smart, you knew it, and you should ask him about this later. I'm not saying this. I'm just joking, people. This is just a joke.
I mean, we can all go to Ireland. I think that sounds great. Right. But like, yeah, no breaking points, no that. And so I hope that this has been helpful for everybody. You know, I'm not saying that Hanukkah is the most amazing thing in the world, because it's not. It's not even one of God's 7 holy days. Like, I think it's special. I think it's neat. I think it's a time of remembrance. I think it's a great time to, you know, shine our light to Jews. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If it's not a holy day, would you be willing to give up Hanukkah?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So in the same way, you understand. See, I was just like in my brain, I'm like, oh yeah, totally. Hanukkah is a tradition that you choose to celebrate in the winter months. But if you're telling people that they could possibly give up a man-made tradition like how Americans celebrate Christmas, I was just curious if automatically you would do the same thing for Hanukkah. And in fact, you did. You said, no, we'd be willing to give that up. That's instinctively, that's a man-made tradition. I'm going to still do my things, and like, I'll probably still have lights in my house. I'll probably have my winter stuff, but we could give up Hanukkah, that tradition thing.
We don't do stuff for Purim every year. We don't do stuff for Hanukkah every year. Some nights we have like one special meal and then go, okay, that's good. Like, yeah, absolutely. I think the only things for us that are like top tier, this is really important, is partaking in the Lord's holy days, which again are not Jewish holidays, they're the Lord's holy days. For us, that's really important. Seeing his, you know, his first coming, looking forward to his second coming, the Christ coming to the earth, right? Emmanuel, the Lord here with us. Like, absolutely, yes. We see that in Sukkot. We love coming together and celebrating. It's very simple and basic. Do the other things matter? No. They're fun. Do they matter? No. Is this going to be my hill to die on? No. Not at all. If you do want to celebrate, don't want to celebrate, it doesn't matter. I just think it's important that we all ask and go, hey, because for me, again, I just know that was such a light bulb moment when I started thinking, why do we do this? Like, and I've asked this question about everything. Why do I have to go to a building to be church, right? Like, is it the building that matters? Or is it the body of believers that matters? Can we be church at a park? Can we be church at a house? Can we be church on the internet? Does it have to be like, you know what I mean? Just asking those questions of, does it have to be a pretty building? What if it's an ugly building? Is it the same level of church? Is it a better level of church? I think it's just asking those questions and going, right? What is worship? Is worship just a type of music, or is worship literally our lives lived out every day, poured out to the Lord, right? You know, so I think it was just kind of questioning everything. And I think that we live in a world that doesn't encourage you to think. It tells you what it wants you to think. And I don't want to just think what the world's telling me I need to think.
There's a Bible verse about meditating about things on things of above, and not on the things here. And I think that that's a perfect example of it. The core is what you're talking about. The core is, I'm concentrating on the things above. I'm concentrating on this. All of this is just what's happening around, and it's circumstantial, and it's all this. This is what we're focusing on. Now, if you can do that inside of yourself and truly say that, fantastic. Do it.
That's wonderful. Yay!
If you feel like there's something not yay in you, question it and ask why, and then maybe like, how do I fix this? Build the puzzle, and if things fall off, things fall off. But you should at least question it when you have that weird feeling. But if you pass the test, awesome, do it. It's not bad. There's nothing bad about doing the things. You just have to, like, inside of you know that it's right, because you're doing it for the right reasons, and you've thought about all of these things. We still come to the same conclusion. Fantastic. Awesome.
Go do it. Because you're going to answer to the Lord like I'm going to answer to the Lord. And I have to be completely set in my mind. Like, this is not blatant sin, right? Like, that's one topic. I'm set. I have a clear conscience. I could stand before the Lord today and give my account. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm saying that I'm trying to do the best with what I have, knowing that I'm a sinful wretch. But what I'm trying to give to the Lord, I can stand with confidence in.
You're a sinful wretch, and you've made the best decisions that you could make with the knowledge that you have in this moment.
Yeah.
Because you've thought about the choices that you have.
Yeah.
Because you thought about it. Yeah.
And sometimes the scariest thing is responding when you've thought about it and the decision that you think you should be making isn't the one that is that norm, that's that broad path, and you make a different one. And so it can be really scary. And so I'm really thankful that we have gotten to share, even though we've gotten oodles of awful messages. I'm thankful we had to, because I've seen so many that were helped and were encouraged to say, I've been feeling this way too. We've been really feeling this, and I can't do it anymore. And so to have the encouragement of someone else that was like, yeah, right there with you, couldn't do it. I'm very thankful for that. So I'm glad that we did it. And I'm glad that now anytime we're asked these questions, you can just link these old videos back and be like, there you go, y'all, like go get what you need. So however you're celebrating, whatever you're doing, I mean, that's the whole point. It's, if you want to do something and you want to come together at the end of December and celebrate Christ's birth, go for it. Go celebrate it. Have a great time. Do that. If you want to just get together and have a fun day and sit by a pretty tree and give out gifts because dang it, it's a cultural holiday and you want to celebrate it, yeah, have fun, enjoy it, right? Do what you feel you should be doing. That's fantastic. If you're like us, and actually it's dark already, so I should probably go and let the next kid light a Hanukkah, then sure, go do that, right? Like, it's all good. How about we just, show a little more, maybe remember that we're going to be claiming that we're here to show so much love of Christ to the dark world all around us. Let's maybe start by being able to show even a little bit of love to those who are professing believers here in the body of Christ that we're responding to. I thought that was a big one. I'm claiming that I'm here to show the love of Christ to the whole world by celebrating Christmas, by ripping you to shreds and saying so many awful things. And you're like, okay, sounds good. So thank you all for hanging out with us for an extra special kind of a holiday palooza Q&A. So hopefully this answered y'all's questions and brought some clarity to some things. And whatever you do it to the glory of God. That is absolutely what matters, because literally, other than that, I mean, we could treat every day the same, or every day is something special. It doesn't matter. Go out, serve the Lord, love others. Let's look for his return. How about that? Okay. That's what matters. That's what we're going for here. So thank you all. Thank you, Sabrina. I know you had to sort through like oodles and oodles of things to pull this all together. So thank you all. And some super exciting stuff coming up this week. I have a very special video tomorrow. And then Tuesday is our 6-year anniversary. So big exciting stuff coming up. We'll see you all then. Bye, friends.